Hello everybody. So today, September 10th, is the climatological peak of the Atlantic hurricane season, and with what all's going on in the Atlantic right now, it's definitely definitely fitting that description. So we have three hurricanes out in the Atlantic right now, all happening at the same time. So let's start with the one that's not going to hurt anybody. So this is Helen right here, a Category 2 hurricane. So this is just going to curve back out to sea and not be a problem for anybody other than maybe shipping interests or whatnot. But Helen's going to do its thing and just move out to sea, but there's no need for anybody here to worry about that one. Isaac is a Category 1 hurricane right now. It really doesn't look all that healthy for a hurricane, but the Hurricane Center's official track keeps it moving due westward for the next 5 days, and it's looking like the wind shear by the time it makes it to the Caribbean Sea over here will be pretty strong, and it may even just rip this storm apart completely. So that would be good if that happens. The big story right now is Hurricane Florence. Hurricane Florence intensified rapidly today all the way to a Category 4 hurricane. And the conditions for development ahead of the storm are very, very favorable. So the water temperature is very warm. It's even warmer over here in the Gulf Stream. At least for the next 24 to 48 hours, the wind shear is forecast to stay low. So this theoretically could become a Category 5 hurricane before landfall. A slight bit of good news is that right before it makes landfall, there is some forecasted increase in wind shear. So the Hurricane Center consequently is forecasting this to make landfall as either a Category 3 or Category 4 hurricane as opposed to a Category 5. But I mean, that's still a major hurricane, and the impact from that's going to be devastating somewhere. And it looks like the cone keeps narrowing and narrowing, and it's looking more and more likely that this is going to impact somewhere along the North Carolina coast. If anybody's in the far northern part of the South Carolina coast, you need to still keep an eye on this. But I would say anybody along the North Carolina coast from the South Carolina North Carolina state line all the way up to Cape Hatteras. If you or somebody you know is along that coast, I would go ahead and leave. I mean, if I lived there, I'd be leaving right now. The impact along the coast here, where the max winds are, is going to be devastating because of the winds, and then the impacts to the north of the storm with the rotation coming in off the sea. The waves and the rip currents are going to be such that nobody needs to be on the beaches over here anyway. So it's best just to get out and leave. And a secondary threat, which may even be the biggest threat from this storm from a larger area, is going to be over North Carolina, Virginia, maybe even into Washington, D.C. The Weather Prediction Center is forecasting some areas of Virginia, of central Virginia and southern Virginia, to get anywhere from 15 to 20 inches of rain, and that could be an underestimate if the storm stalls out and moves even slower than the models are suggesting. So, while everybody right now is focused on where exactly Florence is going to make landfall, I think the bigger threat going forward is actually going to be a very large area of Virginia and North Carolina that get lots and lots of rain. It would take a lot for it to be what Harvey did last year to Texas, but nonetheless, I mean, even 15, 20, 25 inches of rain is going to cause some major flooding in some areas. And so there's another area of disturbed weather in the Caribbean about to move across the Yucatan Peninsula, and this will move into the Gulf of Mexico. Now, the weather models don't have a very good handle on where this is going to go or how strong it's going to get at this point, but what I can say is that the conditions for development in the Gulf of Mexico should be favorable. So wind shear is forecast to be light over the next couple of days after this moves into the Gulf, and the water here is definitely warm enough to support intensification into, at the minimum, a tropical storm. If this thing gets organized fast enough and gets a good vertical structure, we'll have to keep an eye on it, but it could get the right ingredients and area for rapid intensification once it gets into the Gulf. That's not a certainty, but it's definitely a possibility. As far as people that should be keeping track of this storm, I would say anybody that lives from Brownsville all the way over to New Orleans should keep an eye on this storm because, like I said, the models don't have a good handle on this, and models typically don't have a good handle on where storms like this are going to go until they form a closed center of circulation. And this has not done so yet. So we'll have to watch this over the next couple of days and see what happens. But I mean, this is definitely a threat from anywhere from the northern Mexican coast all the way to the Louisiana coast. I mean, we're just going to have to watch it over the next few days. And another thing to keep in mind is a lot of areas in Texas here have already gotten a lot of rain over the last few days. So if this thing decides it's going to move and bring all this moisture toward Texas, I mean, we could have some real flooding issues due to the fact that we've already gotten a lot of rain. Now, the flooding from this, I mean, shouldn't be anywhere close to what we got from Harvey last year, but still, I mean, the models will have better estimates on what the forecast rainfall looks like. Once this thing develops into a tropical depression or tropical storm, in other words, gets that closed center of circulation. And then they'll send aircraft reconnaissance airplanes into this storm to get better data and feed that into the models. And in theory, that should give us better data and better forecasts from the model to get a better idea where this is going. So in the meantime, I'll keep an eye on it for everybody. If anybody has any questions or wants to discuss, feel free to comment below and I'll answer any questions you have. Take care.